chosen one. 14 nights ago, something shifted behind the veil. No thunder, no warning, just a quiet authorization moving through higher realms. A decision made because one soul kept going while unseen forces expected collapse. That soul was you. You've always felt it. The strange loneliness in crowded rooms. The feeling of watching life from the outside. As if you arrived here with a purpose, but the instructions were erased on entry. You questioned yourself. Wondered why pain followed you when your intentions were pure. Why being kind felt heavier for you than for others. This was not punishment. It was preparation. You are not imagining the weight you carry. You are not broken. You are not too sensitive. You are not failing at life. You are remembering fragments of who you were before the forgetting. And that remembering hurt because awakening always does. 7 days ago, something noticed your silence. Not your words, not your prayers, your endurance. While others demanded signs, you kept your heart open through loss, betrayal, and disappointment. That frequency reached places complaints never reach. This message is not for everyone. It's for the one who felt abandoned, yet never abandoned what was right. For the one who stayed gentle in a world that rewarded hardness. For the one who almost gave up but didn't. What happens next will explain why your life never felt random, why the pain had limits, and why help arrives now. Stay to the end. And if you feel this message found you at the exact right moment, leave a quiet comment below so I know you were meant to hear it. You've been living with a kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix, a fatigue that follows you from the moment you open your eyes until the day finally lets you rest again. And even then, it doesn't truly leave. You go to bed exhausted, wake up heavy, and carry that invisible weight through conversations, responsibilities, and small decisions that suddenly feel far more expensive than they should. This is not the kind of exhaustion doctors easily name or tests can quickly explain. It sits quietly behind your eyes, dulling your focus, slowing your reactions, making even simple choices feel like negotiations with your own energy. You rest, you pause, you try to recover, yet nothing fully restores you. And somewhere inside you've noticed that this tiredness feels deeper than the body. You've noticed it, haven't you? The strange split where your body shows up but your energy feels scattered, like pieces of you are pulled in different directions at once. Some nights you fall asleep quickly, almost collapsing into rest, only to wake suddenly hours later with your heart alert and your mind racing for no clear reason, replaying fragments of thoughts you didn't invite. Other nights you stare at the ceiling, reliving conversations you wish you'd never had to survive. Moments where you swallowed words or stayed calm when something inside you was breaking. You tell yourself you're just stressed, just overworked, just going through a phase. But deep down, you know it's more than that. Because stress alone doesn't explain the pattern. And then there's the loneliness. Not the obvious kind that comes from being alone in a room, but the quieter kind that follows you even when you're surrounded by people. You can be in a crowd, at work, at family gatherings, even with people who care about you, and still feel invisible. Like you're slightly out of sync with everyone else. You listen, you support, you show up when others need you. You carry emotional weight without being asked. Yet when it's your turn to be held, the room feels empty, and the silence lands heavier than words ever could. You've felt this even with family, even with people who genuinely love you, and that's what makes it harder to explain. Over time, you've learned to keep things to yourself, not because you're closed or distant, but because explaining your inner world feels pointless when no one truly hears it the way you need. You've been misunderstood enough times that silence slowly became safer than correction, easier than trying again. So you nod, you smile, you say I'm fine, and you keep going, even when fine isn't the truth. When you look at the patterns around you lately, you notice other things too. Practical things that don't seem spiritual at all at first glance. Money that leaks instead of flows, expenses that appear just as you start to breathe, plans that almost work and then stall at the very last step. They don't collapse dramatically. They don't explode. They simply delay. And that distinction matters more than you realize. Opportunities hover close enough to touch, then drift just out of reach. Relationships feel warm and promising, then oddly distant without a clear reason, and you keep doing the right thing while the reward feels postponed, as if life keeps saying not yet without explaining why. The waiting wears you down in a way failure never did. In private moments, you've asked yourself hard questions you don't voice anymore. Questions like, did I miss something? Did I choose wrong? Or why does it feel like I'm always the one who has to be strong? You don't ask these questions out loud because you don't want to sound ungrateful or dramatic, but they echo when you're alone, especially when the day finally quiets. Alongside all of this, there's been a subtle sense that something is off. Nothing dramatic or cinematic, just a low hum beneath everything. A feeling that reality isn't matching your effort, that your inner growth isn't reflected outside yet, that the math doesn't add up the way it should. Stop for a moment. Really stop. Because this is where many people start gaslighting themselves, calling it bad luck, blaming timing, telling themselves it's just another rough season they need to push through. But what you've been experiencing is too precise, too patterned, too consistent to be coincidence. The fatigue didn't arrive randomly. The isolation didn't happen all at once. And the delays didn't come from the same place as your past struggles. This wave has a different texture, a different intention, and your body and intuition have been trying to tell you that. Notice how the pressure increased exactly when you refused to become bitter, when you didn't take the shortcut, when you chose integrity even though no one was watching, when you stayed gentle instead of hardening yourself to survive. That timing matters more than you think. You weren't attacked at your weakest. You were pressured at your most aligned. And that's not how chaos works. That's how targeting works. You may not see it clearly yet, but there are patterns only visible from above, sequences and escalations that respond directly to decisions you made quietly, without applause or validation. And the reason it feels confusing is because the struggle isn't happening where you've been taught to look. This isn't about punishment. It's about containment, about slowing something that was trying to move forward. Something in you has been trying to expand, to heal fully, to step into a cleaner version of yourself. And every time it does, resistance shows up. Not loud, not violent, but strategic, choosing delay instead of denial and doubt instead of destruction. Think back over the last few weeks and notice how many times you almost gave up but didn't. How many moments you chose the harder right over the easier wrong. Because those weren't small moments, they were checkpoints that registered far beyond your daily life. Here's what most people never realize. When a soul passes certain internal thresholds, attention shifts. Not human attention, but something older, quieter, and far more exact. You didn't imagine the heaviness increasing. You didn't imagine the emotional tests repeating with different faces. And you didn't imagine feeling watched without being seen. Because these are signals, not symptoms. You are not being drained because you're weak. You're being pressed because you're stable. Because there are forces that only respond when someone refuses to break. They don't rush. They observe. They wait for exhaustion. They wait for you to doubt yourself just enough to step off your path. And lately the pressure has been asking the same question over and over, whether you'll abandon who you are to make things easier. So far, you haven't. And that's why things feel intense now. Not because you're losing, but because something bigger has taken notice. The reason help arrives quietly is because loud help attracts interference. And what's been moving around you recently isn't random relief but controlled, authorized, and timed movement. You don't need to understand all of it yet. You just need to know that your pain was logged, your endurance was recorded, and what happens next was set in motion long before you felt ready. This isn't the end of the pressure, but it is the end of being unseen. And as you move forward, the next signs won't arrive as miracles but as clarity, as things quietly returning to order, as doors opening without force. Before that happens, the pressure may try one last time to convince you that this was all meaningless, but it wasn't. And deep down you already know that. What you've been walking through has a name, even if no one ever taught it to you. This wasn't just a rough patch or an unlucky sequence. This was a spiritual campaign, a form of divine testing that only activates when a soul reaches a certain level of internal alignment. You didn't stumble into this. You were entered into it. And the reason it felt so personal is because it was targeted. Here's what most people never hear. When someone carries a consistent frequency of integrity, compassion, and restraint, it creates a signal. Not a loud one, a clean one. And that signal attracts attention across layers most humans don't perceive. Light doesn't go unnoticed. It gets evaluated. It gets tested. It gets challenged to see if it's real or just performative. This is where the pressure you felt began to organize itself. Not chaos. Organization. Timing tightened. The same themes repeated with different faces. The same emotional tests returned in new disguises. And every time you thought, "Didn't I already learn this?" the answer was yes. But now the stakes were higher. Stop. That repetition wasn't punishment. It was verification. There was a reason the attacks didn't come as disasters. They came as erosion. Small doubts planted at the wrong moment. Fatigue layered on top of fatigue. Delay stacked on delay. The goal wasn't to destroy you outright. It was to bend you quietly, to make you compromise just enough to lower your frequency without noticing. That's how spiritual wars are won against good people. Slowly, look at the methods that were used against you. Doubt, whispered when you were already tired. Fear, exaggerated just enough to feel logical. Delay, not denial, so you'd keep waiting. Sabotage, subtle and deniable. Loneliness, timed when you needed support most. Provocation, to tempt you into reacting out of character. Guilt, recycled from old wounds. Temptation, dressed as relief. This wasn't random pressure, it was a playbook. And yet, something frustrated the entire operation. You didn't break the way you were expected to. You bent, but you returned. You felt the anger, but you didn't become cruel. You felt the urge to lie, cut corners, or protect yourself at someone else's expense, but you hesitated. That hesitation mattered. That pause is where the war shifted. Here's the part most people miss. In higher realms, there is no debate about words, only about actions taken under pressure. Somewhere beyond your awareness, your recent weeks were being reviewed not as suffering, but as data, patterns logged, responses measured, integrity observed under conditions designed to compromise it. This is what ancient traditions called a tribunal. Not a courtroom like humans imagine, but an assessment of truth. Stop for a second. This is important. You weren't being tested to see if you were perfect. You were being tested to see if you were consistent. Anyone can be good when life is fair. Only certain souls remain clean when life applies leverage, and that's what placed you on the list. Not your prayers, not your intentions, your restraint. There is a universal law that activates when enough evidence accumulates. When a soul is proven under stress, the direction reverses. What was taken must return, and not symbolically, literally, with interest. This isn't karma as people casually describe it. This is correction. And once that order is issued, nothing beneath it can override it. But before that reversal manifests, there is always one more tactic. The final pressure wave. It's not stronger, it's smarter. It comes disguised as exhaustion, as "I'm done," as "maybe this isn't worth it anymore." Its purpose is simple: to make you abandon the path right before the return begins. Many do. You haven't yet. This is why things may feel oddly intense even now. Why distractions increase. Why misunderstandings spike. Why old triggers resurface. This isn't regression, it's proximity. When a decision is about to be honored, interference peaks. That's how timing works in this realm. The closer the correction, the louder the resistance. Now listen carefully to what comes next, because this is where healing begins to take form. The first thing to return is clarity. Not answers to everything, but a quiet certainty about what matters and what doesn't. Confusion lifts first. Mental fog thins. You'll notice decisions becoming cleaner, faster, less emotionally expensive. That's a sign. The second thing to return is clean provision. Not dramatic windfalls, but steady relief. Leaks stop. Expenses stabilize. Support appears without strings. Opportunities stop stalling at the last step. This isn't luck. It's alignment resuming. When energy stops being drained by resistance, it flows again. The third thing is acceleration. Time compresses. What used to take months begins to take weeks. Conversations move things forward instead of sideways. Doors open without force. You'll feel momentum that doesn't burn you out. That's how you'll know the reversal is active. But before all of this fully arrives, there is a moment you need to remember. A moment from the recent past, somewhere between 2 and 6 weeks ago. You were tired, maybe angry, maybe disappointed. Someone gave you an opening, a shortcut, a chance to say something untrue, to act out of character, to protect yourself by harming trust. It would have made things easier. No one would have known. You paused, That pause is everything. You didn't choose the shortcut. You didn't take the bait. You didn't become what the pressure invited you to be. At the time, it felt small, almost forgettable. But that was the bending point, the axis on which everything turned. And whether you realized it or not, that moment closed the case. What comes next depends on one thing only: that you don't misinterpret the final pressure as failure. It's not. It's confirmation. Stay aware, stay clean, stay you, because the help that was sent is already moving. And it doesn't need your effort. It needs your consistency. The war is being resolved, and the return has already begun. You remember that moment, don't you? 2 to 6 weeks ago, when everything in you wanted to stop being the good one. You were tired in a way that made kindness feel stupid. You were carrying leaks money, energy, patience, like a bucket with cracks you didn't create. And someone, or something, presented a shortcut that looked like relief. It wasn't dramatic. It was ordinary on the surface. A message you could have ignored. A lie you could have told to protect your image. A cold response you could have delivered and called it boundaries. You were provoked at the exact hour you were weakest. Usually late night, or early morning, when the mind is raw. Stop. That timing was not accidental. Inside you, 2 voices showed up. One said, "Be sharp. Be selfish. Do what they did to you." The other said, "Don't betray yourself just to feel powerful for 10 minutes." You felt the pull toward revenge, toward sarcasm, toward the clean little poison of, "I deserve this." You felt temptation dressed as justice, and then you did something that the dark side can't calculate. You paused. You breathed. You chose the harder right instead of the easier wrong. Maybe you told the truth when a lie would have saved you. Maybe you didn't expose someone even though you had the evidence. Maybe you walked away instead of winning the argument. In that moment, you didn't just behave. You passed a level, because that moment was the bending point. That's the exact point the campaign was built around. Doubt was deployed to make you question yourself. Fear was used to make you rush into a bad choice. Delay was stacked to make you desperate. Sabotage tried to make you lash out and ruin your own progress. Loneliness was timed so you'd feel like nobody would defend you. Provocation was the match. Guilt was the smoke. Temptation was the exit sign. Stop right here. This is the micro-reveal. They weren't trying to make you sad. They were trying to make you different. They wanted you to become a person who lies easily, a person who hardens quickly, a person who cuts corners without blinking. Because once you become that, you stop being protected by the protocols you don't even know you carry. And you refused. The moment you refused, the spiritual math flipped. The tribunal already had the evidence. Not your intentions. Your restraint. Not your tears. Your decision. Not your prayers. Your consistency. And when that evidence sealed, a law activated that is older than the noise around you. Return what was taken. Add interest. That phrase is not poetry. It's an order. It means the leaks stop first. It means the delays lose authority. It means the sabotage loses access. It means the same system that allowed pressure to test you now requires compensation to restore balance. And the dark side can only retreat when the order is issued from above. You felt the shift before you understood it. Small things started happening. A near miss you can't explain. A conversation that could have exploded but didn't. A sudden inner calm that arrived without effort for 10 seconds, then 30, then longer. Those are not mood swings. Those are signs of protection tightening. Question: how many almost disasters have you quietly survived in the last 48 hours? Now the returns begin in a specific sequence. First, clarity. Confusion loosens like a knot being untied. You stop second-guessing every decision. You see who is safe and who is not without drama, without hate. The sign is simple. Your mind gets quieter at night, even if life is still loud. Second, clean provision. Not chaos money. Not take this and lose your peace. Clean. The leaking slows. The unexpected expense doesn't hit as hard. The right help shows up without you begging. And it doesn't come with manipulation. The sign is simple. You start catching up without burning out. Third, acceleration. Things that stalled for months start moving in weeks. Replies come faster. Opportunities stop almost happening and actually land. You feel momentum that doesn't punish you afterward. The sign is simple. Progress feels natural, not forced. But listen, there is always a final pressure wave right before the return becomes obvious. It comes to test if you'll ruin your own blessing at the last second. It tries to pull you into old reactions. It will tempt you to text the wrong person back. It will tempt you to over-explain to people committed to misunderstanding you. It will tempt you to spend your peace proving your worth. Stop. Don't take that bait, because your new protocol is different now. You don't chase. You don't beg. You don't leak. You don't wrestle with people who feed on your emotional output. You move clean. You move quiet. You let what is not aligned fall away without a speech. That's not coldness. That's upgrade. And the upgrade has markers you can't fake. You'll notice repeating numbers in clusters: 777, 1111, 1010 more than usual, especially around decisions. You'll experience random interruptions that actually save you from the wrong place, the wrong person, the wrong timing. You'll feel less attached to what used to hook you emotionally. You won't need closure from the ones who couldn't value you. That's healing at a spiritual level, not just mental. This is why your pain was allowed to be silent. It wasn't to break you. It was to refine you into someone who can hold power without corruption. You were being shaped into a soul who can be trusted with more influence, more provision, more impact without losing yourself. That is rare. That is why the pressure was strategic, and that is why help was sent with precision, not noise. Right now, you're standing on the edge of the hill. You can look back and finally see the pattern as a pattern. The exhaustion wasn't random. The loneliness wasn't pointless. The delay wasn't denial. It was all a corridor leading you to one decision. Would you stay true when it cost you something? You did. And because you did, the return isn't a hope. It's a process already in motion. You are not just a chosen one. You are the omega of integrity. Comment 222. Chosen one. Pause here and take this in slowly, because what you've just heard was not meant for everyone. 3 things are now locked in place, and they cannot be reversed. The tribunal has stamped your case, not after debate, not after hesitation, but after review. You crossed the bending point when you could have taken the shortcut, and chose not to. And the reversal has already been issued, non-negotiable, irreversible, with no room left for delay, excuses, or later. This is why God saw your pain when others dismissed it. This is why help was released quietly, with precision, instead of noise. You didn't survive this season by accident or luck. You stayed clean under pressure when it would have been easier to harden, lie, or retaliate. You didn't just endure the war, you revealed it by refusing to become what it tried to turn you into. That refusal is evidence. That consistency is proof. And that is why your identity is now sealed. You are the omega of integrity. Let this land. You are not being elevated because you were flawless. You are being elevated because you were faithful to who you are when no one was watching. You were measured when you were tired. You were weighed when you were alone. You were tested when it cost you something real. And you passed without applause. That is rare. That is why the verdict was swift. Now listen to what comes next, because this is where healing becomes tangible. Over the next 7 to 14 days, the first return is clarity. Not dramatic revelations, not overwhelming visions, just mental quiet. The fog lifts, the inner noise settles. Decisions that used to exhaust you suddenly feel obvious. You stop replaying old conversations at night. You stop questioning your instincts. That calm is not coincidence. It's the first sign the reversal is active. After clarity, clean provision follows. This doesn't arrive as chaos or pressure. It arrives as relief. Leaks slow down. Expenses stop ambushing you. Support shows up without manipulation or strings attached. You may notice money behaving differently, no longer vanishing in strange ways, no longer tied to stress. Provision becomes aligned with peace. That's how you'll recognize it's real. Then acceleration begins. What stalled for months starts moving in weeks. Messages get answered. Doors open without force. Conversations finally move forward instead of sideways. You'll feel momentum that doesn't drain you afterward. Progress won't demand sacrifice of your integrity anymore. That's the upgrade working. But hear this clearly. Before the return becomes obvious, expect one final pressure wave. One last provocation. One last attempt to pull you back into old reactions. It may come as irritation, temptation, or the urge to explain yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. This is not failure, this is confirmation. Do not take the bait. Silence, restraint, and alignment are your protection now. You've already done the hardest part. The war phase is closing. The restoration phase has begun. Your job is not to force outcomes or chase validation. Your job is to stay clean, stay present, and let what is not aligned fall away without a speech. Now say this out loud, slowly, and let your body hear it. What was taken from me returns now clean, complete, and multiplied. If your spirit feels steady instead of anxious right now, leave a single word below that feels true to you.